In the farthest corners of the galaxy, there lay a planet lost to time. Once home to a powerful alien race known as the Corians, the world had fallen into decay. Their cities, once bustling with life, now stood as silent ruins. Tall, towering structures were crumbling, and the air was thick with the weight of forgotten history. The Corians had once been one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, their technology surpassing that of many other civilizations. They had been protectors, diplomats, and peacekeepers, beloved by many. But something had happened, a disaster, a war, or perhaps a betrayal, that had sent them into a sharp decline. Now, only a handful of survivors remained, scattered and hiding, their once proud civilization reduced to nothing more than whispers in the galaxy. No one remembered the Corians anymore. The galaxy had moved on, leaving them behind. Their allies had long forgotten them, and their enemies had erased them from history. It seemed as though the Corians were destined to fade into obscurity, never to be seen or heard from again. However, fate had a different plan. A small human expedition, tasked with exploring the unknown regions of space, came upon the forgotten world. They were led by Captain Aria Mitchell, a brave and curious leader who had always believed that the universe held more secrets than anyone could imagine. She had heard rumors of a lost alien race and wondered if there was any truth to the stories. As the human ship, the Vanguard, entered the atmosphere, they were struck by the sight of the dying planet below. The surface was littered with ruins, long-abandoned cities, broken roads, and forests slowly reclaiming what was once the heart of a grand civilization. The planet's surface was scared, and the atmosphere was thin, but there was a sense of mystery that filled the air. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lieutenant Jax, Aria's second-in-command, his voice filled with uncertainty. "This place, it feels like it's been abandoned for centuries." "Keep scanning, Jax," Captain Mitchell replied, her voice steady. "There might still be something alive down there. We need to find out what happened to them." The humans had been trained to explore new worlds, but this was different. This planet was not just uncharted. It was a ghost world, a place forgotten by time. They landed near what appeared to be the remains of a once mighty city. The buildings, although tall, were cracked and overgrown with vines. What was once a vibrant metropolis now looked like a monument to loss. As the crew stepped out of the ship, the silence was deafening. There was no wind, no sounds of wildlife, just an eerie calm. The ground beneath their boots was soft, as if the planet itself had been sleeping for centuries, waiting for someone to awaken it. "Stay close," Aria instructed. "We don't know what we might find here." The crew moved cautiously through the remains of the city, their steps echoing in the empty streets. The atmosphere felt heavy, like the weight of lost history was pressing down on them. Jax scanned the area, looking for any signs of life. For hours, they found nothing, just the decaying remnants of a once thriving civilization. But then, they found it. In a small, hidden courtyard, they discovered something strange. Among the ruins, a group of figures emerged from the shadows. They were different from any humans or aliens the crew had encountered before. Their skin shimmered like polished stone, and their eyes glowed with an inner light. They were the Corians, or what was left of them. They looked weary, their faces lined with age and sorrow, but there was a spark in their eyes. They were survivors, and they had been waiting for someone to remember them, to help them. At first, the Corians watched the humans with suspicion, unsure of their intentions. They had seen too many invaders over the years, too many who came to take rather than give. But as Aria stepped forward, her voice calm and steady, something shifted. The Corians recognized the sincerity in her eyes. "We come in peace," Captain Mitchell said. "We're here to help. What happened to your people?" For a moment, there was no response. The alien leader, a tall figure with silver-blue skin, stepped forward, his expression sad yet hopeful. "You are human?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. You are the first to come, after all these years. Arya nodded. We are, and will help you rebuild. You're not alone anymore. The Quarian leader stared at her for a long time, as if trying to understand her words. Finally, he nodded, a tear shimmering in his glowing eyes. Maybe there is hope for us yet. The humans had found the Quarians, but the question remained, could they save them from the shadows of their past? The fate of this forgotten race now rested in the hands of humanity. As the crew prepared to learn more about the Quarians and their history, they couldn't help but wonder, what had brought this once great civilization to its knees? And would the humans be able to protect them from the dangers that still lurked in the galaxy? The journey ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in centuries, the Quarians had found a protector in humanity. The discovery of the Quarians had been a shock, but the real mystery was just beginning. Captain Arya Mitchell and her crew knew they had to learn more about the Quarians and their history. The ruins of the city held many secrets, and the survivors seemed eager to share them, if only they could find the right way to unlock the past. The Quarian leader, now revealed as Varnock, led them deeper into the city. The humans followed, their footsteps echoing in the silent streets. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the broken buildings. Varnock walked with a heavy heart, his mind clearly burdened by the weight of the past. As they reached the center of the ruined city, he stopped in front of an enormous stone structure, half hidden by overgrown vines and cracked pillars. This is the vault, Varnock said, his voice quiet but filled with reverence. It holds the history of our people, their wisdom, our knowledge, everything we were. The humans gathered around the massive entrance, which was adorned with intricate symbols. These symbols were unlike anything Captain Mitchell had seen before. They didn't look like any language she was familiar with, but there was something deeply beautiful and ancient about them. How do we open it? Asked Lieutenant Jax, eager to understand what lay inside. Varnock seemed to hesitate, his eyes scanning the stone door. Only the ones who truly understand us can open it, he said. The vault will test you. Captain Mitchell stepped forward, glancing back at her crew. They had no idea what kind of test lay ahead, but they were prepared to face whatever came their way. This was more than a simple discovery. This was about saving an entire race. Varnock nodded and placed his hand on the stone door. His fingers traced the symbols with a sense of familiarity. For a moment, nothing happened, and the humans began to wonder if they had reached a dead end. But then, slowly, the stone began to rumble. The earth beneath their feet shook as the massive door began to open, revealing a dimly lit chamber within. Inside the vault was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were covered in glowing markings that seemed to move and shift. Strange machines, unlike any human technology, stood tall in the room, their purpose unclear. It was clear that this was no ordinary archive. This was a place of great importance. Welcome to the heart of our people's history, Varnock said softly. This is where we kept our greatest knowledge, the stories, the inventions, the wisdom of the Quarian race. But it is also where we kept our darkest secrets. The humans followed him into the chamber, their eyes wide with awe and curiosity. They could feel the weight of the Quarians' history pressing down on them, the knowledge of an entire civilization lying within these walls. Varnock moved to the center of the room, where a pedestal stood, covered with a thin layer of dust. On the pedestal rested a small, intricately designed orb. It glowed with a soft, blue light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the heartbeat of the room. This is the key, Varnock explained, lifting the orb carefully. It holds the final records of our people. It is the reason for our fall, the last mistake we made. Captain Mitchell stepped closer, intrigued. What do you mean? What happened to your people? Varnock's face darkened, his voice heavy with the pain of long-buried memories. We were once great, protectors of many worlds. We helped bring peace to countless civilizations, but there were enemies who feared our power. They sought to destroy us, to wipe us from the galaxy. They created something terrible, something we could not stop. A weapon. Captain Mitchell frowned. A weapon? Yes, Varnock whispered. A weapon that could erase entire species, entire civilizations. It was too powerful for us to control. It destroyed everything we had built and left us scattered, lost. The Corians, once protectors, were now hunted and forgotten. The humans stood in stunned silence. They had come to help the Corians, but now they realized the full extent of their struggle. It wasn't just about survival. It was about facing a threat that could annihilate entire worlds. The weapon that had destroyed the Corians was still out there, waiting to be unleashed again. How do we stop it? Captain Mitchell asked, her voice filled with determination. She knew that humanity had faced impossible odds before, but this was something else. It was a fight for the very future of the galaxy. Varnock's eyes met hers, his gaze filled with both hope and fear. I don't know, he admitted, but the key holds the answer. It will reveal the truth, but only to those who are worthy. Captain Mitchell nodded. She wasn't sure what worthy meant, but she knew that humanity would not back down from this challenge. The Corians had been forgotten by the galaxy, but humanity was here to change that. They would fight alongside the Corians, and together they would uncover the secrets of the past and face the dangers that still lurked in the shadows. As Varnock placed the orb back on the pedestal, the room seemed to hum with energy. The key had not yet revealed its secrets, but Captain Mitchell was certain of one thing. The journey ahead would be one of discovery, danger, and above all, hope. The Corians had found protectors in humanity, but it was now clear that the fight was far from over. There was more at stake than anyone could have imagined, and it was up to the humans to stand beside their new allies and uncover the truth that could save them all. The discovery of the key had brought more questions than answers. As the humans stood in the Corian vault, surrounded by the alien artifacts and the eerie glow of the ancient room, they realized that their journey had just begun. The Corians had shared their painful history, revealing the existence of a weapon capable of erasing entire civilizations, but there was still so much they did not understand. Captain Area Mitchell stood silently, her eyes locked on the small orb that sat on the pedestal. The key held the secrets of the Corian people, their downfall, and possibly the future of the galaxy. But how could they unlock its power? How could they stop the weapon that had destroyed so much? I don't understand, Lieutenant Jack said, his voice filled with frustration. How can one weapon be so powerful? And why didn't the Corians destroy it when they had the chance? Varnock, the Corian leader, stood next to them, his expression grim. We tried, but it was too late. The weapon, it was beyond our control. It was created by those who feared our power, and once it was activated, there was no stopping it. It doesn't just destroy. It erases entire worlds from existence, from memory. Once it's unleashed, there is nothing left. Aria's mind raced. She could hardly believe what Varnock was saying. A weapon that could erase a whole world. It was beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. Do you know where it is now? Aria asked, her voice steady but filled with concern. Varnock shook his head. We lost track of it long ago. We believe it is hidden in a place beyond the reach of most beings. Somewhere far, far away, where even the most advanced technologies cannot reach. The room was silent as the crew absorbed the weight of Varnock's words. The Corians had once been protectors, and now they were the ones in need of protection. The galaxy had moved on, and the Corians were left with nothing but memories and regret. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands, Aria said, breaking the silence. Her voice was calm, but her determination was clear. If the weapon still exists, we have to find it and destroy it before it can be used again. Varnock looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude. You would risk everything for us, for a race that has long been forgotten. We're not just doing this for you, Aria replied. We're doing this for everyone. No one should have to live in fear of a weapon like this. It could destroy entire civilizations, not just yours. Varnock nodded, his gaze filled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. Then we must act quickly. The key, it is our last hope. It will guide us to the weapon, but we must be careful. If we are not worthy, it will never reveal its secrets. Captain Mitchell turned to her crew. We'll need to prepare. We don't know what dangers lie ahead, but we're going to need every advantage we can get. The Corians have suffered enough. It's time to put an end to the legacy of this weapon. The team began to make their preparations. They needed to figure out how to use the key to find the weapon, and hopefully destroy it. But as they worked, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were not just fighting for the Corians, but for the future of the galaxy itself. Meanwhile, Varnock led them to another part of the vault, a room filled with strange alien technology. The walls were lined with what appeared to be star maps, and in the center of the room was a console, ancient and dusty. It had clearly not been used in centuries. "This is our last chance," Varnock said quietly. "The maps will guide you. The key will unlock the path." Arya approached the console, brushing off the dust with her hand. The screen flickered to life, and the star maps lit up with a soft glow. Symbols and coordinates flashed across the screen, showing distant stars and planets that Arya had never seen before. "The weapon is hidden," Varnock explained. "These coordinates will take you to it, but it won't be easy. The place where the weapon rests is heavily guarded by the same forces that created it." Arya looked at the map, her mind already calculating the risks. She knew they would face danger, but this was no time for hesitation. They had come too far to turn back now. "Prepare yourselves," she said to her crew. "We're going to need all the help we can get. This is going to be a dangerous mission." Jax, always eager for action, stepped forward. "We'll be ready, Captain. Whatever it takes." The Corians had suffered for so long, but now there was a glimmer of hope. The weapon that had destroyed their world could still be stopped, and humanity was ready to help. Together, they would unlock the secrets of the key and find the weapon before it could bring destruction once again. The future of the galaxy depended on them, and time was running out. Captain Arya Mitchell stood before the star map, her eyes scanning the coordinates with intense focus. The weight of their mission was now fully sinking in. The galaxy was vast, and the place where the Corians believed the weapon was hidden seemed almost unreachable. But there was no turning back now. The Corians had suffered enough, and humanity had pledged to help them. They had to find the weapon, and they had to destroy it before it could erase any more worlds. Her crew gathered around her, each of them preparing for the journey ahead. The Corians had offered their knowledge and technology, but the mission was still dangerous. They were going to travel to an unknown location, deep within the uncharted regions of space. There was no telling what kind of enemies they might encounter along the way. They had to be ready for anything. "We've got a long journey ahead of us," Arya said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We need to be prepared for anything. This weapon is unlike anything we've ever faced. It could destroy entire civilizations with a single strike." Lieutenant Jax, the ship's weapons officer, stepped forward. "We'll be ready, Captain. We've got the best crew and the best equipment. If anyone can find this weapon and stop it, it's us." Arya nodded. She trusted her team, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead still gnawed at her. The Corians had told them little about the exact nature of the weapon. They only knew that it had been hidden away, far from the reach of any civilization, and that it was guarded by powerful forces. That alone was enough to make Arya uneasy. "I've prepared the ship," Jax continued. "All systems are online, and we've got plenty of supplies for the journey. If we have to fight our way in, we'll be ready." Arya glanced at Varnock, who had remained quiet during the discussion. The Corian leader seemed to be lost in thought, staring at the star map as if searching for something. After a long moment, he finally spoke. "The journey you are about to undertake is not one without peril," Varnock said solemnly. "The weapon is hidden on a world that is surrounded by dangers, both natural and unnatural. The forces that created the weapon do not take kindly to trespassers. You will face many challenges before you even reach the place where it is hidden. Aria's jaw clenched as she looked at Varnock. We know the risks. We're not afraid to face them. Varnock nodded. It's not fear that will be your greatest challenge. It's trust. The weapon has been protected for centuries. It is not just a weapon. It is a test. The forces that guard it are waiting for the right moment to strike. You must stay united, or you will fail. The words hung heavy in the air. Aria knew that trust among her crew was essential. She had always believed in the strength of her team, but the stakes had never been higher. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy. With a deep breath, Aria turned to her crew. We're leaving in 2 hours. Prepare yourselves. And remember, no matter what happens, we stick together. We can't afford to fail. The crew nodded in unison, their faces determined. They knew the risks, but they also knew what was at stake. The mission was bigger than any one of them. It was a chance to make sure that no one else had to suffer the same fate as the Corians. As they set off toward the coordinates on the star map, the crew settled into their tasks. Aria took her seat at the helm, her hand steady as she guided the ship into the vast unknown. The stars outside the window blurred as they entered faster than light travel, but in her mind, everything was clear. They had a purpose. They had a mission, and nothing would stop them from completing it. Hours passed, and the ship sailed through the dark expanse of space. The crew worked tirelessly, running checks on the ship's systems, preparing for any encounters, and staying alert for anything that could threaten their mission. But as the time went on, something seemed to weigh heavily on Aria's mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. She glanced out the window, but the stars remained distant, just pinpricks of light against the vastness of space. There was nothing unusual to see, nothing that should raise concern. And yet, her instincts told her something was wrong. The unease in her gut grew stronger as they traveled deeper into unknown space. Captain, Lieutenant Jax's voice broke through her thoughts. We're approaching the location. We should be entering the system in a few minutes. Aria straightened, her mind sharpening. All right. Stay sharp, everyone. We don't know what we're going to find when we get there. The ship slowly decelerated as they entered the new system, and the crew could see the distant outline of a planet in the distance. It looked ordinary enough, uninhabited, with a surface that appeared to be rocky and barren. But as they drew closer, a strange feeling began to settle in the air. The planet didn't seem empty. It felt watched. The ship's sensors began to pick up strange energy readings as they approached the planet's atmosphere. Something was definitely not right. Captain, Jax said urgently, we're picking up something on our sensors. There's an energy signature coming from the planet's surface. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. Aria's heart raced. This was it. The weapon was down there, and it was protected by something powerful, something that was now aware of their presence. Ready the weapons, Aria commanded, and prepare for anything. They had reached the planet. The real challenge was just beginning. As the ship descended toward the barren planet's surface, the atmosphere felt different, heavier, thicker, as if it were alive. The mysterious energy signature from the planet was growing stronger by the minute, pulsing like a heartbeat. Aria Mitchell sat at the helm, her eyes fixed on the approaching surface. There was no telling what kind of danger awaited them, but one thing was certain. They were not alone. Captain, Lieutenant Jax said, his voice tense, the energy signature is fluctuating. We don't know what we're walking into. It's like it's reacting to our presence. I've got it, Aria replied, her fingers flying across the controls. Stay sharp, everyone. We're entering the atmosphere now. As the ship entered the planet's upper layers, strange phenomena began to unfold. The once clear readings on the ship's sensors were now distorted, flickering in and out like an old broken signal. The crew braced themselves, unsure of what to expect. They had come this far, but they all knew that the true test was yet to come. Preparing for landing, Arya muttered, focusing on her task. The surface below was rocky, with jagged mountains rising sharply from the land. Nothing seemed alive, nothing but the eerie silence that surrounded them. Yet the energy signature continued to pulse from beneath the surface, guiding them like an unseen hand. The ship slowly descended, touching down with a gentle thud. The crew's heartbeats quickened. They had arrived. The weapon was somewhere beneath them, hidden away by ancient forces. But there was something more. There was a presence watching them, and it wasn't the lifeless planet they had first assumed. As the ramp lowered, the crew stepped out into the harsh, desolate landscape. The wind howled around them, whipping up dust that stung their faces. The ground was dry and cracked, with no sign of life. But then, as Arya surveyed the horizon, she spotted something. There, on a distant mountain peak, a figure stood, motionless and silent, watching them. "Do you see that?" Arya asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jack squinted toward the peak. "I see it, Captain. What is it?" Before Arya could respond, the figure vanished, leaving only the sharp rocks behind. It was as if it had never been there, but the sensation of being watched remained. "Stay alert," Arya ordered. "That wasn't just a trick of the light. Someone, or something, is out there." The crew cautiously moved forward, keeping their weapons ready. Every step felt like 1,000 miles, as though the land itself was holding its breath. They had come for the weapon, but now they were beginning to wonder, was it the weapon they needed to worry about, or the guardians protecting it? As they trekked through the rocky terrain, the strange energy signature began to guide them again. It led them toward a narrow canyon, its walls towering above them. The air was thick with the presence of something ancient, something powerful. It was clear now that they were not meant to find what lay at the end of this path. "Keep going," Arya urged, her voice steady. "We're close." The narrow canyon twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the heart of the planet. The further they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as if the very air was thick with warnings they couldn't ignore. The ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with a strange energy, vibrating through their bones. Then, as they turned a corner in the canyon, they finally saw it. A massive stone door carved into the side of the canyon wall. The door was unlike anything they had ever seen, covered in intricate symbols and glowing faintly with a light that seemed to come from within. "This is it," Arya said, her voice filled with awe. The entrance. The team gathered around the door, studying the strange markings. It was clear that it had been untouched for centuries, possibly millennia. There was no telling what secrets it held or how to open it. Jax approached cautiously, inspecting the door. These markings, they looked like the same symbols we saw in the Corian vault. This must be connected to the weapon. Arya nodded. "It has to be. This is what we've been searching for." Just as she was about to step forward, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The strange energy signature that had been guiding them suddenly flared to life, and a low, growling sound filled the air. The rocks around them began to shift, and out from the shadows stepped the figure they had seen earlier. But this time, it wasn't just one figure, it was many. The figures were tall, humanoid but with features that were unsettlingly alien. Their skin shimmered with a strange light, and their eyes glowed with an eerie intensity. They moved with purpose, and the way they walked seemed almost as if they were gliding. The leader of the figures stepped forward, its glowing eyes locking onto Arya. "You have come," it said, its voice deep and resonant, echoing in the canyon. Arya instinctively took a step back. "Who are you?" "We are the Guardians," the figure replied. "And you have come to claim what you do not understand." Arya's mind raced. Guardians, was this the force that had protected the weapon for centuries? But before she could ask anything further, the ground shook again, and the Guardians raised their hands in unison. A wave of energy rippled through the canyon, and the air became thick with tension. "You are not worthy," the Guardian leader declared. The key was never meant for your kind. Aria's heart pounded in her chest. They had reached the entrance, but now they faced the real challenge. The Guardians weren't going to let them pass without a fight. She glanced at her crew, knowing they had to be ready for whatever was coming next. This was the moment where everything would change. They had come so far, but now they were facing the ultimate test. The Guardians stood in front of Aria and her crew, their glowing eyes watching with unwavering focus. The air was thick with tension. It was clear that they weren't just protectors. They were something much older, something far more powerful. The stone door behind them seemed to pulse, as if alive with the same energy that surrounded them. "We will not allow you to proceed," the Guardian leader said in a low, echoing voice. "The key is not for those who are unworthy. It is a test of strength, of will, and of heart. You will not pass unless you prove yourself." Aria stepped forward, her mind racing. She had known this journey wouldn't be easy, but the stakes were higher than ever. The weapon they sought wasn't just a tool of power. It was the key to humanity's survival. She couldn't afford to fail now. "What kind of test?" she asked, her voice steady despite the rising fear in her chest. "We've come this far. We have to finish this." The Guardian leader's eyes glowed brighter. "You must face your own trials. Only then will you be worthy of the key." With a sudden movement, the ground beneath them shifted. The canyon walls began to crumble and rearrange, as if the very landscape was reshaping itself. The crew instinctively backed up, trying to stay in formation, but the earth was unstable. Cracks spread through the ground, and soon they found themselves standing in a vast, open arena. The Guardians remained at the edges, silent, watching. Aria and her team were alone in the center, facing an uncertain challenge. The once silent air now hummed with energy, and in the distance, the sound of rushing winds grew louder. Suddenly, the ground beneath Aria shifted, and a massive stone golem rose from the earth, its eyes glowing with the same eerie light as the Guardians. The creature was enormous, towering over them, its body made of jagged rocks that seemed to pulse with the strange energy of the planet. "This is your first trial," the Guardian leader's voice boomed, echoing throughout the arena. "Defeat the Guardian of Stone, or you will not pass." Aria's heart raced. This was no ordinary test. They had faced danger before, but nothing like this. The creature's massive fists were raised, ready to strike. The air around them thickened, and the ground trembled under the weight of the golem's steps. "Ready yourselves," Aria shouted to her crew. Without hesitation, Jax and the other soldiers raised their weapons, preparing for the battle. But Aria knew this would be no ordinary fight. The stone golem was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Its immense strength was matched only by its durability. As the golem charged, Aria signaled for her team to scatter. She darted to the side, narrowly avoiding a crushing blow. The golem's fist smashed into the ground where she had just been, sending a shockwave through the arena. Rocks flew in all directions, and the ground cracked open beneath them. "This thing's too strong," Jax shouted, his voice filled with frustration as he fired his weapon at the golem. The blasts hit, but they had little effect. The creature's rocky body absorbed the damage, and it seemed almost indestructible. Aria didn't give up. She had faced impossible odds before, and she wasn't about to fail now. Her mind raced for a solution. The golem was strong, but it was also slow. The key was in outsmarting it, not overpowering it. "Focus on its joints," Aria ordered. "If we can weaken its movements, we'll have a chance." The team shifted their tactics, firing at the golem's joints, its knees, its shoulders, and its massive neck. Every shot seemed to do little, but slowly the golem began to slow down, its movements growing more sluggish with each attack. It was working. As the golem raised its fist again, ready to strike, Aria saw her opening. She dove forward, her feet pounding against the rocky ground as she slid beneath the golem's massive form. In one swift motion, she planted a grenade at its exposed joint and rolled to the side. "Move," she shouted, her voice urgent. The explosion rang out with a deafening roar. The golem's arms snapped back violently, and it stumbled, its balance compromised. Arya took a deep breath, watching as the golem faltered. They had done it. It wasn't destroyed, but it was weakened. Now they just had to finish it. But before they could press the advantage, the golem recovered, raising its fist once more. This time, however, it didn't come down on Arya. Instead, it stopped mid-swing, its glowing eyes dimming. A deep rumbling filled the air, and the golem dropped to its knees, its rocky body cracking and crumbling. Arya stepped forward cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. Had they won? Was this the test the Guardians had warned them about? The Guardian leader's voice echoed in the arena once more. "You have faced the first trial. You have proven your strength, but there is more to come." Arya glanced at her crew, each of them panting, their weapons lowered, but their faces full of determination. They had passed the first trial, but now they faced even greater challenges. The Guardians weren't done testing them yet. The path to the key was still uncertain, but Arya knew one thing for sure. Humanity had faced challenges far worse than this, and they would not be stopped. The arena grew silent once more. The Guardians were watching, and Arya and her team were ready for whatever came next. The arena fell quiet after the stone golem crumbled into a pile of rubble, its massive form reduced to nothing more than fragments. Arya and her team stood together, battered but unbroken. Their breaths were heavy, but their determination was unwavering. They had passed the first trial, but the Guardians had made it clear there was more to come. As the dust settled, the Guardian's eyes glowed once more, and the leader spoke again, his voice carrying across the silent arena. "You have proven your strength in battle," he said, his voice like the rumble of distant thunder. "But strength alone is not enough. The final trial is one of heart and mind." Arya's heart raced. What more could they possibly face? They had fought a giant golem, survived its attacks, and come out victorious. But now, the Guardians were talking about a test of heart and mind. She exchanged glances with her team, all of them wondering the same thing. What was next? Without warning, the ground beneath them began to shift again, the stone beneath their feet creaking as it moved. A doorway appeared in the far wall of the arena, leading into a dark, cavernous space. The door opened slowly, revealing a glowing light from within. Arya hesitated, sensing that this was no ordinary passage. "This is it," Arya said, her voice firm. "Whatever happens next, we stick together. We've made it this far. We can do this." Her team nodded, their eyes filled with determination. Together, they walked toward the glowing doorway, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. As they stepped inside, the air grew cooler, and the light from the doorway faded behind them. The chamber ahead was dimly lit, filled with strange symbols and markings on the walls, ancient and forgotten by time. At the center of the chamber stood an object that glowed with a soft, blue light. It was a pedestal, and upon it rested a strange, crystal-like artifact. The key, the very object they had come for. It pulsed with energy, as if waiting for them to claim it. But as Arya stepped forward, the air around them grew heavy. "This is the final test," the Guardian leader's voice echoed, though he was nowhere to be seen. "To take the key, you must make a choice. The key will grant you the power you seek, but it will also demand a sacrifice." A chill ran down Arya's spine. Sacrifice. What did that mean? What could they possibly have to give up to claim the key? "You must decide," the voice continued. "If you choose to use the key for humanity's benefit, you will alter the course of history. But you will also be bound to it forever. If you choose to keep the key from humanity, it will fade from existence, lost to time, and you will be free of its power." Arya's mind raced. The stakes had never been higher. The key was humanity's only hope to fight the alien threats looming over them. But the sacrifice, the thought of what it might cost, was overwhelming. Could they truly give up everything they had fought for? Area. Jax's voice broke through her thoughts. He stepped up beside her, his eyes filled with uncertainty. What should we do? If we take the key, we risk everything. But if we don't, we lose everything. Area looked at him, then at her team. She knew that this wasn't just about the key. It was about humanity's future. But what was the cost? Was it worth it? I don't know, Area said softly, her voice filled with doubt. But we've already sacrificed so much to get here. If this is what we have to give, then maybe it's worth it. We can't back down now. She stepped forward, her hand outstretched toward the glowing key. But just as her fingers brushed the surface of the crystal, a sudden wave of energy surged through the room, knocking them all back. The Guardian's voice rang out one last time. The choice is yours, Area, the voice said, softer now. But remember, every choice has a cost. Do not make it lightly. Area lay on the ground, disoriented by the surge of power. She could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on her. The key was within reach, but the sacrifice loomed over her like a shadow. She looked at her team, their faces filled with concern and confusion. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Area stood up, her resolve stronger than ever. She knew what she had to do. Humanity has always fought to survive, she said, her voice steady. We've fought for our freedom, for our future. This is no different. If this is the price we must pay, then I'll make that sacrifice. With a deep breath, Area took the key into her hands. The moment her fingers closed around it, the room seemed to tremble, the energy swirling around them. The air crackled with power, and Area felt a strange force surge within her. The key had chosen her. For a moment, everything was still. Then a blinding light enveloped her, and when it faded, Area was standing alone in the chamber, the rest of her team nowhere to be seen. Area, the voice whispered, now soft and calm. You have made your choice. The key is now yours. But remember, the true test begins now. The light around her faded, and she felt the weight of the key in her hand. She had made the ultimate sacrifice for humanity's future. The question now was it enough? As she turned to leave the chamber, Area knew one thing for sure. The war was far from over, and the true power of the key had yet to be revealed. But humanity had a chance, and that was all that mattered.